Welcome to our webinar on how Epicor customers will navigate supply chain volatility and boost supplier performance. Glad you're able to participate today. We are going to be sharing a lot of good content. There will be ample opportunity to ask questions throughout the session. Let me introduce the team that will be presenting. I'm Bob Aronson. I'm with Cre8tive Technology. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. We are a long-standing Epicor partner, and we're glad to partner with SourceDay for this unique opportunity to share that rich content. Colby and Darren will both be presenting from SourceDay as the morning continues.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Bob. I'm Colby Young, VP of Alliances. I've been with SourceDay for coming up on 10 years. The last 3-4 years have been focused on our strategic partnerships, and Epicor is 100% of my brain. So we are now an official Epicor ISV partner as of May of 2025. But I do want to make sure you all know that we've been supporting Epicor clients for about 7 years. We've done about 100 implementations. So we're not new to Epicor. Our just relationship with Epicor is new as an official partner, and excited to be partnering with Cre8tive as well. Darren?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Darren Zakwahidi, Director of our Solution Consulting team at SourceDay. So I do everything functional and technical when it comes to Epicor and the integration between SourceDay. I will give a little mini preview demo here at the end, so you get to see the product and understand how it extends Epicor.
Thank you, team. And from the Cre8tive perspective, we actually have customers that are on the integrated SourceDay Epicor platform. They're delighted, and we're delighted to share the technology with the rest of our customer base. So for those, just a refresher on who Cre8tive is. We've been a long-standing partner with Epicor. We founded our company back in 2006, and we've had a great history of growth throughout the last, I'll call it roughly 20 years. We've done some acquisitions, but we are staying true to our focus on our customer and the manufacturing space. So we do, within the organization, we do really focus on what our customers need. And that's why we're partnering with SourceDay. We have a tremendous amount of information and value to bring on how our customers can optimize supply chain coordination, and just overall managing that complex supply chain. As we know, it's getting more complex every single day with a lot of rules, regulations, compliance, and a host of other parameters that are really driving our focus on supply chain for manufacturing. And with that, I'll just touch quickly on who Cre8tive is. As I mentioned, we focus on manufacturing. We are now embracing AI to help our customers leverage the power of technology, whether that technology be ERP, quality, our shop floor MES, PLM, IoT, or analytics. AI quickly becomes that engine on how we can gather, support, and maintain information to share not only with our internal organizations, but with our suppliers. And so that's one of the main reasons that we are focused with SourceDay, is really to deliver on that promise on how to keep the supply chain optimal. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Colby and begin the discussion around SourceDay and how this technology will help.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that introduction. Appreciate you all being on today. I know it's an investment in your afternoon to give us some time. So we'll make sure that this is educational and thought leadership, and make sure you walk away with some really good insights. So I've been working with SourceDay for about 9.5 years. And, pre-COVID, it was all about just-in-time manufacturing. How do I hold as little inventory as possible? Lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, that was kind of what everyone was focused on. COVID hit and the pendulum swung 180 degrees the other way. It was, I'll hold 2 years worth of inventory. We didn't know when our suppliers could ship. Countries were shutting down, right? We didn't know how long this would last. And this is a bit of a depressing slide from a supply chain point of view, but it was just kind of supply chain disruption after disruption since COVID has happened, whether it's geopolitical risk, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's pandemic, right? It's been one thing after another, and it's almost like what's next? What's going to happen in 2026? This really is kind of the new normal that we're dealing with, but we can't just act in the COVID days. We can't just hold 2 years worth of inventory, right? We've got to figure out how to deal and manage with this chaos. This is a really interesting data set I'll talk about here. So I'll walk you through the graphs. But SourceDay processes $60 billion worth of direct spend. We have about 115,000 supplier users that use our solution. And we've had about 100 million purchase order changes happening through SourceDay's platform. So with that, we have one of the largest direct spend data sets really in the world. And we have data scientists that help us crunch all of this information to provide insights. And what you're looking at here is what we call our supplier volatility index. That's this black line up here at the top. And what it's doing is it's tracking, again, across this massive direct spend supplier network, price changes, order uncertainty, and its impact on-time delivery misses. And you can see here it's all correlated, right? As order uncertainty, which is changes, right? Date quantity changes. Price risk is going to be price going up on what you thought you were going to spend. And then the yellow here, right, is really on-time delivery misses. It's all correlated together. And what I want to point out is this global supplier volatility index is peaking back up to heights that we saw coming out of COVID. The reality is as we enter 2026, right now we are dealing with as much uncertainty, as much global supplier volatility as we did back in, the 22 era of coming out of COVID and trying to figure out, how we are dealing with that chaos. So your procurement team, your suppliers are dealing with as much change, as much chaos, and its impacts on-time delivery as we did in those post-COVID days. Double clicking on the changes side, right? So the order uncertainty piece, and that is again, dates changing, quantities changing. We are seeing right now that at the end of 2025, that all PO changes were hitting at about 50%. So half of purchase orders are needing to be changed. Just to define a change is a buyer needs to make a change. So whether that's MRP, PO change suggestions saying, hey, change this quantity, pull this date in, or a customer saying, hey, I need this earlier. So you're having a full expedite, right? That would be buyer initiated changes. But what's even more difficult about managing a buyer initiated change is it's one thing just to let your supplier know, hey, I need this earlier, or I need a different quantity. You've got to get that handshake back from the supplier and get that commitment written into Epicor so MRP can be accurate, right? So it's really that closed loop that you must have. And then supplier initiated changes, right? Suppliers all the time are saying, hey, I need to move this out. I know you needed it on February 15th. It's really going to be March 15th. It could be April 15th. That's a whole financial quarter later, right? So those supplier changes have to be reviewed. They have to be accepted by the buyer, and they have to be updated back in Epicor. If they don't get back into Epicor, well, MRP thinks that original PO is what's going to happen, right? So all this change has to be managed and has to get back into the ERP. And again, we're dealing with some of the highest rate of changes we did in the post-COVID era. I'll talk also here a little bit about what we like to call the lead trap or ERP lead trap problem. And that is that oftentimes within Epicor, you'll set up your item lead times and it's a little bit set it and forget it. right? You just don't have the hours in your day to constantly be analyzing lead times and updating lead times. But as we just talked about, all this change, all this chaos, you really, the only way to be good at this, to navigate the supply chain disruption we're dealing with, is to have as close to a dynamic lead time as possible. You can't live with just static lead times because it's constantly changing. And if your lead times aren't right, then your PO change, I'm sorry, your PO suggestions at MRP are going to be wrong, right? You've got to have that accurate. You've got to have good insight into that, or you're going to be cutting purchase orders with the wrong lead times and you're going to always be late. And again, y'all know it's been unpredictable since COVID. Everyone's dealing with price volatility as well. Tariffs hit folks in different ways. Some people were trying to repatriate suppliers because of that, right? Lots of different strategies. But I think the biggest strategy you need is item level visibility. We'll talk about how we're solving that and giving this item level visibility to our customers. But as I've talked about all this chaos, right, this is the problem you're dealing with, is that between Epicor and your direct spend suppliers, there's a gap. If you think about Epicor as a house, right, everyone has a room in the house. Finance has a room, WIP has a room, manufacturing has a room, logistics has a room, purchasing cuts their POs, right? Can use MRP, PO suggestions, get those POs approved. But once the PO is delivered to the supplier, there's this big gap. And to bridge this gap, the tools that procurement and suppliers have are emails, spreadsheets, and phone calls. We're in 2026, and we believe that suppliers and your inbound inventory are the most important part of your whole supply chain, trying to navigate all that chaos, making sure that MRP is accurate and it's emails, spreadsheets, and phone calls. And when you have that high rate of change, the reality is that things get missed. It is impossible for buyers to get all those updates back into Epicor at the line level so MRP is right. So the result of this gap is MRP is running off bad data, bad open order data, and you also run into the problems around accounts payable matching, right? You can't pay your suppliers till purchase order matches receipt, matches invoice. Well, the reality is this gap creates big data problems, it creates inefficiencies, and it puts your buyers underwater. And where's the real supply chain crisis? It's happening in everyone's inbox every single day. We signed up a client recently where every buyer was dealing with 1,000 emails a week, 1,000 emails a week, trying to deal with supplier changes, right? That just becomes impossible. Again, the misses happen, and those emails have price changes, cancellations altogether, date changes. And then you think about all the emails that buyers have to send trying to keep up with MRP change suggestions or just cutting new orders, right? It's constant email. It's open order reports trying to look at what are my updates. This is impossible to manage. And again, the result is outdated data. The result is bad inventory projections. The result is mismatches on your invoices. So how do you solve this? And it is why Epicor finally, after many, many years, decided to partner with us. Epicor tried to solve this with some different portal options over the years, but ultimately, again, last year decided to say, okay, hey, we need to partner with SourceDay to be our go-to supplier portal partner because of the success that they watched us have over the last 6.5 years with Epicor customers. And what we're doing is we're bilaterally integrating with Epicor to extend Epicor's capabilities to all of our customer suppliers. And when I say all, the way we're able to do this is we're not making suppliers use a portal. Suppliers can use really any method of technology they want. And this is another big reason why Epicor partnered with us is we've innovated on our solution over the last 4 to 5 years to say, hey, a portal doesn't work. you're only going to get a certain amount of suppliers into a portal. And those suppliers love it, right? They have better functionality. It guides them through the PO process. They can do things in bulk. It's great for the right supplier. But tons, I mentioned we have 110, 115,000 supplier users. The majority of them just use an email. So they don't have a login, they don't have a username. They're able to engage on orders just as they do today via email. It's like an embedded order in the email, but it's connected into SourceDay. We also have APIs, we have EDI options. We also are launching document ingestion. So it's able to take PDF documents that suppliers might send out via email automatically. We can grab those documents, scrape them, get them into SourceDay. So point I'm getting is we don't fit suppliers into the box of a portal. We allow them to engage however they want to make sure every step of that purchase order lifecycle, POs created in Epicor until goods are received in Epicor, is happening in SourceDay. So Darren's going to show you a lot of these kind of steps. But again, I just want to hit on, we don't change the way you use Epicor. You're going to cut your POs in Epicor. You're going to make receipt transactions in Epicor. It's all those steps in between that SourceDay is going to handle for you with digitization and automation. So kind of how do we do this? And how are we really helping manufacturers tackle these issues that I've been talking about? First and foremost, right, it's automated PO change management, right? You've got to automate the change, whether it's a change in acknowledgement, whether it's an expedite change, whether it's a change 10 days before something needs to ship, it's getting pushed out, whatever it is. And Darren's going to show you a lot of this, right? We're automating that change and getting it into Epicor. It's the only way you have a fighting chance of having MRP being accurate and having inventory projection be right. Also, early risk detection, right? How do we use AI? Bob talked about AI a lot, right? Everyone's using AI. So are we, right? We're using AI to help identify how can we bubble up risk before it happens? How can we identify something might be late, or we might identify a price change before that action happens so you can mitigate that risk? Supplier scorecards. Everyone should be trying to improve supplier performance. The only way to improve something is to measure something. So SourceDay is going to be able to provide robust supplier scorecards so you know who's helping your business, more importantly, who's hurting your business and why. It's not a gut. It's not a, oh, here's what I think is going on, or here's what I remember last week. It's true data-driven supplier scorecards. And then whether you figured out tariffs, still dealing with tariffs, still dealing with price impacts, right? Having that item level visibility to understand where you might need to source new suppliers, where you might need to get out of a single source situation. So I do want to talk about, this is a joint client that we have with Cre8tive called Sour Compressors. This is a client that is about to go live on SourceDay and pointing out $16 million of savings over 5 years. And they're able to project those savings by hitting on all those problems, those pre-shipment problems that we talked about. So the biggest one being missing parts. So Sour's dealing with tons of production downtime because of missing parts. In fact, over this time horizon, 120 days of unplanned downtime because they didn't have the parts they needed when they needed them. SourceDay is going to help reduce that. SourceDay is going to help improve on-time delivery to make sure that that is reduced by at least 25%, saving them millions. That leads directly into safety stock. What organizations do, because they know suppliers are going to be late, you all might be doing it, is they increase buffer stock, right? They hold more inventory, they buy more inventory than they need because they don't want production downtime, right? They can't put revenue at risk because they're missing parts. They know their suppliers are going to be late. So they hold too much inventory. Well, when you have all your changes accepted into Epicor, when you can trust MRP, when you see on-time delivery improvements, you can lower safety stock. And that's what Sour is going to do. And then, of course, scale without adding headcount. Everyone's asked to do more with less. And that's exactly what Sour is going to do by utilizing Epicor and SourceDay together. Real big savings. And this is what we can help you do, is really analyze where you're going to get these savings with SourceDay. So I talked about that item level performance. I want to just double click into that. So what we're able to do, right, is not just give you a supplier scorecard, but almost give you scoring by item. Where's your lead time variance? Where's your purchase price variance? Not just by supplier, but by item. And then actually bubble up risks here by saying, hey, we know your lead time is, X, because we're seeing all the data, but your ERP says it's Y. We think this is going to be late, or this might show up early, right? If there's an issue with that. So giving you the visibility and the risk, and also the data to go make the updates back in the ERP. And the only way you can go actually analyze the lead time and go make these important projects happen is to have the time to do it, right? So automate all this administrative work that SourceDay can do for you to give you the time to analyze your item level performance and go make those decisions. And here's actually a case study of a client that did exactly that. So they were able to figure it out that they had specifically 25 to 30 parts that were always late, and it was slowing production. They were able to figure that out. They were able to work with their suppliers, update lead times, and actually reduce their WIP by 66%. They were able to reduce late deliveries by 70%. Right? This is game-changing supply chain metrics for Chatsworth products here. Another piece of our solution, and Darren can show you some more of this as well, but we again, Bob talked about AI. Everyone's using AI. Epicor's using AI. You need to think about AI and really how to use it. I'll call it appropriately in the supply chain. And I think we're doing just that. So how we're using it specifically around automation is saying, hey, customer, you continue to accept changes that are not having an impact on your business. Whether it's a small quantity change, whether it's a small date change, whether it's a small price change, whatever it might be, we can show, hey, this continuously is happening. Do you want to just automate these changes? We're not going to do it. We're just going to show you areas in which you are having repetitive actions that could be automated that's not having a change on your business. And if you put that into place, we'll automate a bunch of more steps for your procurement team to give them more and more time to focus on strategic work. And actually, Prayer Machine, we did a case study with them around this exact automation workflow, and actually was able to save them 2,000 hours. That's a full employee. So think about if you had a whole nother person, whole employee worth of time back in your procurement's day to focus on negotiating better pricing, using that scorecard to do vendor reviews, trying to repatriate if you need to, if you're dealing with tariffs. Find more suppliers so you're not single source, right? There's so much that can be done with your procurement team that they just don't have the time to do because they're dealing with all this chaos. And to kind of recap, I've got just maybe a couple more minutes and then we'll get into the demo with Darren. But just to double click, like when you implement SourceDay, right, you're going to have the automation on acknowledgements and all PO updates. And those updates are happening throughout the whole life of the PO. If you think about folks that have long lead times, right, that purchase order might change a dozen times. And you need to know when it's changing and who's changing it, and have your arms around those changes and make sure the ERP is right. Making sure you're being proactive. The only way you can see on-time delivery improvement is by having standard operating procedures that keep you ahead of the problem. And that's what automation is going to help you do, some of the AI in our product. Item level visibility, right? We talked about making sure lead times are right, making sure pricing is right, catching these mistakes before it becomes a problem. And then lastly, managing by exception is a business practice that everyone wants to do, but it's very hard to do, right? So automation's the only way that you're able to bubble up. Here's what needs your attention. Let us take care of we call it happy path, and put your brain power and focus on what needs the attention. And as a result, here's a case study I want to point out is the one we're tremendously proud of. Ag leader really getting down to what everyone's trying to do is serve their customers better. So they were hovering at 50% on-time delivery to customers. SourceDay allowed them to increase that up to 98%, right? Almost perfect delivery to customers. And what he says, it's just that simple. Like, you have to perform better to your customers, whether you're at, 70% today, 80% today, 90% today. Everyone should be striving to be perfect to their customers. And when you're not, you're holding too much inventory. So help them reduce inventory by 32%. And another one right here, 100% strategic supplier adoption. And that's what it's all about, right? And why Epicor partnered with us was for these metrics: serve customers better, optimize inventory, and make sure suppliers use the technology, because if they don't, right, might as well not have it. All right. Well, that's all I've got. I'm going to pass it over to Darren to get into the fun part of actually showing you product demonstration.
Perfect. Thanks, Colby. So it's exciting. We have a big group of people on today, and I like to take what Colby just talked about in terms of how we're measuring the volatility of suppliers, supply chain in general, the real life customer use cases between Prairie Machine, Ag Leader. I have had the opportunity to co-present with Ag Leader and a couple other Epicor customers on their use of SourceDay. So the fact that we can talk about the reality of the solution in play is really, really cool. What I want to do from just a quick demo standpoint, though, there's 3 areas that Colby really talked about. One was, how can we automate the PO lifecycle process? And I always like to say that that's where we start. We want to digitize the process, make sure that the days of the old open order report and set of spreadsheets go away, and we can have something that is digitized and live in nature. That is the starting pillar for everything else that we can build upon on a more strategic level, like understanding supplier OTD and OTIF, understanding item prediction for lead time or lead time volatility. So when we think about automating the life cycle of the purchase order, as Colby mentioned, the suppliers have a lot of different options how to engage, and that's what we want, the suppliers to be able to click a button in an email, come to the portal. Maybe we have other ways that we can capture data. What I want to highlight, though, just when you think about automating the PO life cycle, the way that it looks in SourceDay, and I want to show a couple different things. Now, if we need to, I would love to have the opportunity to show you a live integrated environment with Kinetic. We can do that. That's not a problem. For today, just for the sake of time, I want to highlight a couple things in SourceDay where we are connecting Epicor to your suppliers. This is what we call our PO hub. The purchase order hub is everything related to the life cycle of the PO, as Colby mentioned. So we can understand and extend that buyer workbench in the PO entry screen to say, what is happening with my purchase order out of Epicor? How are my due dates, my promise dates aligned? And are my suppliers making any changes to the purchase order? You'll see everything that we want to do inside of SourceDay is managed by exception and show you the red or show you the risk. In this example here, all of the things in red are essentially showing us that the supplier is making a proposed change, and we are highlighting those changes to the purchasing team. Now, in this example here, you'll notice that the supplier has made a proposed change to the price and also the date. Everything inside of SourceDay is managed down to the line and release level, because as Colby mentioned, we want to make sure that MRP is using the most accurate information that we align and get the handshake from with the supplier. So in this case, the supplier is saying we're having some issues with our raw material and our production. We are pushed out a good 20 some days. The prices are increased. We didn't requote. We understand the price has gone up because of tariffs. When I click confirm, that automation process here will push us back directly into Epicor, so that PO at the line and release level will be updated with the new date and quantity. MRP runs next night. It understands what you have to do to make some shifts in production and planning with those changes. So there's a lot that we do from an automation standpoint. And you'll notice that Colby did talk about what Prairie Machine was doing to automate. I just showed a manual click of a change. Any process throughout this can be fully automated where somebody is not actually touching changes, but we're letting SourceDay make those changes on your behalf. Out of the box, though, we have what are called our core automation rules. Think about this as SourceDay is going to take over that manual process of delivering all brand new purchase orders and notifying suppliers about them. They will notify anytime that you do make a change or you need to do an expedite. We're going to notify the supplier about that and ask them for a confirmation on that. So our PO delivery agent is taking those changes and new POs out of Epicor and automating that to the supplier. We don't stop there, though. We start to chase orders. So if things are unacknowledged and there's not a promise date yet, we will chase those suppliers and make sure we are getting confirmations done. And that little check mark inside of Epicor that says unconfirmed will get confirmed. The other side of this is a big one. The open order report that people run and send to the suppliers, ask the suppliers for updates. SourceDay will do that on your behalf and chase suppliers for orders that are coming due soon. We can ask for reconfirmation. So when we think about that, I think Colby mentioned, Prairie Machine said, what can we take and automate? And we save 2,000 hours, which is essentially a whole person's task of doing these tactical things. We can we can shift those focuses to the exceptions or more strategic activities. So these are our core order chaser rules that can also be adjusted and modified based on what we call custom workflows. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So as I mentioned, the thing that we want to do is automate the beginning of the PO lifecycle. Automating that is understanding the lifecycle, segmenting the lines and releases into that, showing you the red and making sure that everything is in a touchless process or near touchless process back into Epicor. The same time getting visibility into the audit trail, the history, the digitization of everything along that PO process. The other side of this, as I mentioned a moment ago, is once we can automate the PO life cycle and we can focus on all those exceptions that you really need to look at, we can start shifting the tactical work that is not there anymore and start looking at things that are going to help us understand some inventory strategies, supplier segmentation strategies, maybe shifting suppliers and not single sourcing anymore, multi-source strategy. So we can start looking at the reliability of our supplier based on OTD or OTIF or shipment. We can start looking at what items underneath of that supplier are actually causing issues and having a ripple effect more downstream in our production and our planning process. So SourceDay will start to provide real-time analytics in what we call our supplier hub. So originally we were looking at our PO hub that says everything in the PO life cycle and all of those risks associated. The supplier hub in real time is going to help us analyze what our suppliers are doing in terms of reliability. Now, when Colby talked about reliability and understanding sometimes your strategy behind just-in-time inventory versus holding some additional buffer stock, I actually met and co-presented at Epicor Insights last year with Broadability, and they used the supplier scorecard and this reliability score to figure out what suppliers can they really shift into more of a just-in-time process instead of holding inventory. They were able to reduce inventory, open up warehousing space, and there was hard dollar savings to that. So the scorecard itself can really get granular into looking at what the supplier is doing and isolating am I the one that's actually making changes on the PO? And I'm always asking for expedites and defers, and maybe it's not my supplier that is as volatile as I think. So having information, very granular information about the supplier behavior, can help you make decisions of supplier strategy, inventory strategy, production strategy. So that is the one thing that I like to highlight about suppliers. And this is, again, giving you a lot of ways to look at the data and slice and dice it on understanding shipment information, promise dates versus due dates, and being able to make some decisions there. The other side of this, if we flip back, is what can we do around item predictability and item reliability and item analysis? Because we have the purchase order data, we're understanding how your supplier is doing holistically at the high level around their OTD or OTIF. What if we want to slice that down a little bit more and start looking at the items that you buy from the supplier and understanding what item volatility we have? So a few things that I did want to highlight. When we think about item volatility, you'll notice we were at our supplier hub. If I come back to my purchase order hub, the one thing that SourceDay does through our integration with Epicor is we pull back the goods receipt. The goods receipt is what starts helping us calculate when a purchase order is cut, when it has been received, and what that lead time is in between. It allows us to take that data and start doing predictive analysis on your lead time. I talked earlier about a proposed change. That's something that the supplier actually proposed back to you. What can SourceDay do, though, to start using that data that we have and start making predictions on what might be at risk? This is what we call our predictive lead time risk using artificial intelligence and machine learning by SourceDay Intelligence. So this allows us to say, wait a minute, that lead time and that due date that you're asking for, we really think that it's going to be at risk of being delivered on that date based on all the historic analysis that our SourceDay Intelligence engine is running. Underneath of this, because we're doing the prediction and we can start the outreach to the supplier, we also can start analyzing that actual item. So at the item level, we are now seeing the item, the supplier you buy it from, and we can do some lead time trending to understand that, do we need to actually make an update inside of Epicor for our lead time? So as MRP runs and a PO suggestion cuts, our due date is more accurate. So this information is not just helping us understand lead time as well as pricing trends, but we're using it in a predictive manner. So you can start looking at this and using this as a strategic tool to make updates to pricing, rerun an RFQ, change items from a lead time standpoint. We're able to show you, again, the red, what is at risk, and then segment things that you could go, work on, tackle, and improve in the process. It's all about data, and the most accurate data that you have inside of Epicor is going to make that as high powered as possible. So this is a very exciting one for us because it is doing a lot more beyond just supplier analysis, but being able to look at item level analysis. Now, the final thing that I want to highlight when we think about automating the life cycle, I showed you how we can see the supplier performance and use that for inventory strategies, maybe making some changes to what you're doing from a warehousing standpoint. Item predictability is really important just to clean up data and make sure data is more accurate, but also provide insights before they become problems to the team. The thing I wanted to highlight, because Colby talked about, what can we do to make this entire process as touchless as possible? I mentioned SourceDay Intelligence as being our engine in the background that is understanding, all of the data, and it's using AI technologies as well as machine learning technologies. The one thing that I wanted to end on is, how can we start seeing what the team is actually doing and then make recommendations on what should be automated from there? So the more that you use SourceDay and your buyers and your purchasing team and planners are in here using SourceDay, we start understanding the clicks and the behavior of those buyers. SourceDay Intelligence will start looking at those behaviors and make recommendations on what could be automated. So a lot of times when people think of automation, they're like, I love automation, but I don't know what I could or should automate. Well, you don't have to worry anymore now because SourceDay Intelligence will tell you that, and it will also develop that rule set automatically. So in this case, if we understand that we always accept a date range of a date push that's within a day or two, we always are going to push that and automate it back into and automatically integrate it back to Epicor. Let's automate that rule set. So the minute that the supplier would say, hey, we're going to push this out by a few days and our due date is, going to be within whatever that date, that analysis is, 2 or 3 days, SourceDay going forward will auto accept all of those and then push those immediately back into Epicor so the due date is updated and MRP is running as accurate as possible. So we've just eliminated the manual touch of 800 changes from that supplier. So there's a lot you can do when we want to automate the rule set. And you don't have to think about it now. This is giving you the ability to focus on other activities and let SourceDay Intelligence make those recommendations. So we'd love to have a more in-depth demo and show you the PO lifecycle end-to-end integrated back to Epicor. For today, I wanted to highlight those 3 chunks of we're going to automate that lifecycle process, whether that's just getting emails and order chasing out to you and segmenting the lifecycle. Because of that, we can start to really hone in on the supplier performance and how well they're doing from an on-time delivery, a responsiveness, an OTIF standpoint, but also having that visibility into the item analysis that's going to do some item predictability for you on what lead times are going a little crazy, what prices are increasing that you're unaware of, really starting to provide, direct impact of the business case that Colby talked about when you looked at what Sour Compressor is predicting to have in terms of a business case impact, what we actually know that Prairie Machine has realized, as well as some of other customers like Ag Leader. So Colby, I'm going to turn it back to you. I saw maybe a couple questions pop up.
Yeah.
We'd love to open it up.
Some really, really great questions that we'll dive into. Thank you for bringing them up. So just first, what versions of Epicor do we support? We support, of course, Kinetic Cloud, and then we support all on-prem versions back through 9. If you're older than version 9, we will not support that integration. But version 9, newer, and all the kind of steps between, and then, of course, cloud. We have a question here about, I work for an ITAR compliant manufacturer. Would SourceDay be compliant for us to utilize? Really good question. Sour Technologies, who I referenced, which is a Cre8tive client, also ITAR compliant manufacturer. So what we actually have documentation that we can send you around this as to kind of what is CUI, what is ITAR compliant and not. At the end of the day, it's your decision, which is a lot of this talks about, but dates, quantity, and price of a purchase order from all of our clients that are ITAR do not consider that, ITAR regulated. Documents, schematics, drawings, things like that, we do not share within SourceDay. And that would be done via your secure methods today. So we do have ITAR compliant clients. We can talk more with you about that with Cre8tive. We have documentation around it. Sour Technology, they are ITAR, so we can get in more, but we do support ITAR compliant clients. Great question. We have some more here, so I'm going to run through all the Q&A. Is there a cost for suppliers to use SourceDay? So the answer is no. There's no cost for suppliers to use SourceDay. You invest in SourceDay, and your investment in SourceDay includes as many users as you need. So we don't cap you on users, which is nice. And also just, we have different types of users. We have full buyer users that's accepting, rejecting, right? Doing all the things Darren was showing you. We also have read-only type users that can go in, analyze the item hub, supplier hub, see everything, configure views, but not take action. And that investment in SourceDay includes your supplier network. So we don't cap your suppliers and there is no cost to them. And each supplier can have as many users as they need to support you as well. Kind of leads good into the next question. What's the support structure for SourceDay users and is there support for suppliers? So included in your network of suppliers, there's no cap there. We also provide a supplier success team that is your partner in onboarding and supporting your supplier network. We are experts in that. We are experts in training. We are experts in onboarding. We're experts in SourceDay. We would not be a successful solution. Epicor would not have partnered with us if we said, hey, we do the integration. Good luck getting your suppliers to use it. That we're a partner to you in that. Help you understand your supplier network, how they should be onboarded, who should be portal versus email, right? All of that. So full support on the supplier side. And of course, we have a customer success team as well that is onboarding your team, training your buyers, supporting you through the life of our engagement. Great question here. Do you have customers we can speak to about their experience using SourceDay and Epicor together? So the answer is yes. We have tons. First, we had Darren answered near some. We have tons of case studies on our website. Many of them I spoke to today, but we have lots more. And absolutely, right? If you evaluate SourceDay and part of that evaluation is a reference call, we absolutely have Epicor clients you can speak to about their experience through implementation, onboarding, supplier engagement, the success on the solution. Absolutely. And like I said, right, we're new as an Epicor partner, but we have been supporting Epicor clients for almost 7 years. So a lot of success. Let's see. All right. Next one here. Let's see. I joined late. So you may have already answered this. But when the supplier provides the tracking information for PO release, does your software look at the estimated delivery date from the carrier and update the promise date in Kinetic? Really good question. So, I mean, high level, the answer is yes. Would love to get into the details with you on how we do it. But we have advanced shipping notice workflows where we get shipment detail from suppliers, including tracking. And we have a partnership that's scraping like 1,200 carrier APIs to pull in-transit data via that tracking. So we can pull that directly into SourceDay so you can see where it is in transit, estimated delivery dates are pulled in, visible into SourceDay, and then we're actually working right now with Epicor product team to move that data into Epicor. So can kind of discuss, where you would want that, but we are standardizing that. Today it's pulled directly into SourceDay. But thanks for having us, Bob. Appreciate everyone's time, and I think we're out of questions here. Well, thank you all. Again, please reach out, talk to your creative account manager, and hopefully we'll be talking with you all very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.